Connecticut has a new set of laws aimed at addressing juvenile crime. It comes a year after an outcry over car thefts and COVID-19 lockdowns. I'm Walter Smith Randolph, and tonight you'll hear from lawmakers, youth advocates, and most importantly, teenagers about this new set of laws and how it will impact the juvenile justice system. This is Connecticut Public, and you're watching Cutline, Spotlight on Juvenile Justice.
On June 29th, I lost my good friend, Henryk Kudelski. He lost his life because when he was running, he got hit by this guy who was arrested 13 times in 3 years. And he was a runner. He was running on a sidewalk. He did everything correctly.
It was the crash that shook the state. 53-year-old Henryk Kudelski was jogging on a New Britain sidewalk training for his 41st marathon when an out-of-control vehicle jumped the curb and slammed into him, taking his life.
It was probably one of the hardest things to see in a career of law enforcement. It's hard to watch, it's hard to see, and it's preventable. And I think that's the issue. It's completely preventable, and it happened.
Police say 17-year-old Luis Pagan Gonzalez was behind the wheel of a stolen Audi when he hit Kudelski. The teenager had been released from juvenile detention 2 weeks prior after being arrested 13 times.
I want to answer. I really do want to answer why this guy who killed my friend was on the street, was still not in jail, and killed my friend. Why?
You know, if the juvenile justice system did like it promises it does, is to deter these behaviors, change these behaviors, get these juveniles who are, misbehaving on a right path, this wouldn't have happened. Unfortunately, it happened, and there was a pattern, and everybody can see it coming.
Pagan Gonzalez has pleaded not guilty.
It struck to the core, and it was very difficult to hear that. It was difficult to process, and it just really, I guess, to a lot of people, just shine a light of that we have a serious problem with our juvenile crime.
The crash happened at the same time Connecticut saw a small rise in motor vehicle thefts, which thrust juvenile crime and violent car thefts into the political spotlight.
The current system is failing. You don't have to tell me. I know better than anyone else our justice system is broken when it comes to juveniles. In New Britain's case, somebody is now dead because of it. Something has got to give. Something's got to change.
After months of debate, Connecticut's solution was a so-called crime bill that's aimed at addressing the concerns of juvenile crime. The new law allows GPS monitoring of repeat juvenile offenders, provides therapy, mentoring, and other services pre-conviction, and requires arraignment within 5 days.
This afternoon I spoke with Governor Malloy and FBI Director Mueller. I offered Governor Malloy my condolences on behalf of the nation. The majority of those who died today were children. Beautiful little kids between the ages of 5 and 10 years old. So our hearts are broken today for the parents and grandparents, sisters and brothers of these little children, and for the families of the adults who were lost. This evening, Michelle and I will do what I know every parent in America will do, which is hug our children a little tighter, and we'll tell them that we love them, and we'll remind each other how deeply we love one another. But there are families in Connecticut who cannot do that tonight, and I will do everything in my power as president to help.
It was 10 years ago when a 20-year-old Connecticut man gunned down 6 educators and 20 first graders. The mass shooting forever tied the names Sandy Hook and Newtown with gun violence. For the past decade, the families have grieved while seeking solutions. On this hour of Cutline, we examine that grief, those solutions, and we ask, where do we go from here? From Connecticut Public, I'm Walter Smith Randolph, and this is Cutline, 10 years after Sandy Hook. For the parents of Sandy Hook victims,
oh, my little Daniel.
Every day of the last 10 years has been a readjustment.
10 years of struggle, of triumph, of hard work, of reprioritizing, maintaining focus on my marriage and my role as a father as my priority.
While Mark Barden is focused on his family, he's also focused on gun safety. As co-founder and CEO of the Sandy Hook Promise, Barden has channeled his pain into action.
Where we set out on a simple mission to quite simply prevent other families from having to endure a lifetime of pain caused by preventable gun violence.
Barden works with Nicole Hockley, who is also a co-founder and CEO of the Sandy Hook Promise. The mother of Dylan, Hockley says she has seen a lot of positive change over the last decade.
From my perspective, what I've seen over the last 10 years is not only a concerted focus on school safety and the need to improve it, but really also a focus on trauma and the wellness of kids everywhere and the application of more student voice.
So despite school shootings like Parkland and Uvalde continuing, Hockley and Barden say there's been progress, even though it may not seem so.
All these organizations have come to life and have grown larger and stronger in these 10 years. And the public support has grown significantly, if not exponentially, partly due to the work of all these great organizations, and unfortunately also driven by this increasing drumbeat of violence in our communities, and also these mass casualty events in our schools and shopping centers and grocery stores and places of worship and concert venues.
But Barden says he gets why it may seem like nothing has changed.
When I hear people say, if it didn't, if nothing happened after Sandy Hook, nothing's going to happen. And I understand that frustration. People want to see more action at the federal level. They want to see more safety legislation and policy in place.
Which is why he was inspired by Senator Chris Murphy's impassioned speech to Congress after the Uvalde shooting.
Thanks for watching the PBS NewsHour on Connecticut Public. There is another story yet to come, so don't go away. But first, we'd love for you to take a moment to support this newscast with a contribution. Hi, I'm Lee Newton, and I'm joined by Walter Smith Randolph.
Hi, Lee. Thanks, Lee. Thanks so much. As a journalist, I see every day what it takes to run down a story, do the research, conduct interviews, and bring a balanced approach to what you report. We take that very seriously at Connecticut Public, and so does the PBS NewsHour.
Yeah, that's true. And Walter, I wanted to ask you something because I know that you head up a division of our news team that is called the Accountability Project. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we're a brand new investigative journalism unit here at Connecticut Public, and so we are taking a deep dive at topics like government accountability, at the education system, holding business leaders accountable as well. And we only got started thanks to donors, thanks to folks calling in and watching us and giving us their money. So I would not be here if it was not for our viewers at home.
That is so true. Our members are so important as they are funded. The Accountability Project is funded by members, and you can donate as well. Just visit us online or give through our website or call or text the number on your screen. We have a goal of raising $1,500 in the next few minutes. Now is the best time to give because our friends David and Amy Jaffe, they are great friends of the station. They're sponsoring a matching challenge grant.
The Jaffes are doing that all week long, matching every gift up to $5,000. Have your donation matched dollar for dollar right now when you call, text, or give online to Connecticut Public. Plus, tonight we're doing something different. Instead of choosing a traditional thank you gift, you can choose to help a local child receive a brand new book every month.
Yeah.
Take a look at how it works. Students and teachers are headed back into the classroom for a second semester while the COVID-19 pandemic lingers on. While vaccinations and booster shots are widely available, there are still concerns about safe classrooms and meeting education standards. Tonight, we talk with parents, educators, and the governor about how the coronavirus has forever changed our education system. I'm Walter Smith Randolph for the Accountability Project, and this is Cutline. It was March 2020 when Governor Ned Lamont issued an executive order shutting down all K-12 schools for in-person learning. While schools welcomed students back at least a few days a week last year, districts weren't required to reopen their school building full-time until this school year. As schools reopened, many high school students decided not to show up to class much. More teachers retired mid-year, and education neglect reports increased, as did concerns about student behaviors. As you'll see in our first story, some parents are holding off on sending their kids to school as the pandemic has thrown everything we know about education into disarray. For the Johnson family, this is a blessing. A.J. Johnson arriving to his Hartford home after picking up his two sons from daycare. A.J. and his wife Melinda couldn't imagine this a year ago.
When the pandemic hit, it was like, okay, the daycare is closed for like a week. All right, we'll figure it out. And while we have this newborn in the house, and it's like, okay, we'll figure it out. And so, we're doing the rhyming games together, and we're watching whatever we can find on YouTube. And week 2 happened. It was like, okay, this is not enough. We need to figure out something else.
Finally finding some normalcy, now that daycare has reopened, the Johnsons did not want to disrupt Ashton and Addison's new routine. So at the beginning of the school year, they decided to hold off on sending Ashton to the public school down the street, which was still operating with pandemic restrictions.
He would go to a brand new school that I could never step foot into, a space that I would not be able to process with him, and that didn't feel right. It didn't feel safe.
Melinda and AJ weren't the only parents making this decision. Connecticut saw a record 3% decline in enrollment in public and private school last year. That's a drop of nearly 18,000 students. More than half of that drop was in pre-kindergarten and kindergarten, grades Connecticut parents have the option to hold off enrolling their children in. Preliminary data for this year shows enrollment is down again. So where have all the students gone? The State Department of Education can't say for sure, since parents are not required to report when they decide to homeschool their children.
No one will understand what it is to be, 11 years old, but you're the big brother and you have to look out for your siblings because your mom is an essential worker and could not find somebody to stay home with, right?
Test scores offer a glimpse at just how far some students fell behind last year. State testing data shows kids who were not attending school in person full-time fell the furthest behind. 8th grade teacher Gwen Crosby says when schools were online, it was difficult to get students to participate.
We were losing track of our children. They weren't signing on. Their work wasn't coming. These are children that we knew. And it became something like, is this really what I do for a living? It was disturbing.
The English teacher says she's still seeing the pandemic impact education, even though students are back in the classrooms. Crosby says it's difficult for her to focus on a lesson plan when she has to deal with students who are carrying the emotional baggage of the pandemic.
And sometimes the behaviors that we see are a reaction to, I have all this feeling and I don't know what to do with it. And sometimes a simple redirect, please take your seat, can become explosive or aggressive in some of our children.